Welcome back to Inside City Hall. If Democrats manage to win control of both the U.S. House and Senate in November, Brooklynites would lead both chambers next year. So what are their top legislative priorities for a government potentially controlled by Democrats? Our Kevin Fry asked both Congressman Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Charles Schumer, and he joins us now with more. Good evening, Kevin.
Yeah, good evening, Bobby. This is the idea of a Democratic trifecta. It's not by any means guaranteed. We know that, of course, New York could be make or break for whether or not Jeffries becomes Speaker of the House. And Senator Schumer is trying to win some highly competitive Republican states to keep Democrats in the controlling column in the U.S. Senate. Even so, we had to ask, what do you want to do?
At the start of the Biden administration, when Democrats controlled the House, Senate, and White House, the party set about a massive legislative lift in Washington, passing trillions of dollars in spending to combat climate change, boost the production of computer chips, and upgrade the nation's infrastructure. Now, with renewed Democratic enthusiasm ahead of November's election, giving the party hope at another D.C. trifecta, what do Democratic leaders see as their top priorities? Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who aspires to be the next House Speaker, invokes Vice President Kamala Harris's economic proposals aimed at lowering costs and helping workers.
That will be at the top of our agenda so that every single person in America has the ability to experience the great American middle-class dream.
In the Senate, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer points to voting reforms, including strengthening the 1965 Voting Rights Act and updating campaign finance laws.
In New York, we're doing a good job there, but in other states they're not, and voting is our sacred right. The founding fathers would be turning over in their grave when they see what some of these conservative states are doing.
Democrats eyed voting rights changes a few years ago, but ran into a roadblock, the 60-vote filibuster. At the time, efforts to reform the filibuster failed, blocked by two moderate Democrats. Now, with those two senators leaving Congress at the end of the year, Schumer isn't ruling out a new push for filibuster changes to help get certain legislation passed.
If we have to look at rules changes on different issues, it would be on the table, but I'd have to discuss it with my caucus and see where they want to go.
Now, another legislative priority for Senator Schumer, he says, is the state deduction, the deduction for state and local tax payments, otherwise known as SALT. Of course, that was capped several years ago under the Republicans' tax overhaul bill. It is set to expire come next year, that cap. And Schumer says that if he retains his title as majority leader, he will not put anything on the Senate floor for consideration that would reinstate the cap, arguing it is too much of a pain on New York families.
So, Kevin, obviously a lot of things have to fall into place for Democrats to control the House and the Senate and the White House. But it would seem as though the Senate might actually be the toughest to hold because it's such a closely divided chamber. Republicans would only have to flip a couple of seats for them to win back control.
Right. I mean, look, Schumer has been navigating as the Democratic leader in the Senate for the last 4 years, incredibly tight margins. And this election cycle, a state called West Virginia, which is certainly very Republican, is up for grabs. And Senator Joe Manchin, the Democrat that's been holding on to that seat, now independent, he is retiring from the Senate. So that state is essentially just kind of written off, that the Republicans are going to pick that up. So that would make it a 50-50 divided Senate. Then the Democrats need to hold on to the seats in both Ohio and Montana. By no means easy lifts, though they do have incumbents that have been in those seats for quite some time, popular, appeal to their local bases. Schumer, ever the optimist, points to his argument that because of the surge in excitement that you've seen from Democrats, they have a chance to actually make inroads, to expand their majority, and he points to states like Florida and Texas. Those are going to be steep climbs, though.
And, Kevin, in order to get things done, even with the so-called trifecta, I mean, you got to get Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and a potential President Kamala Harris all on the same page. Do we know if they are already talking, potentially already coordinating in terms of legislative priorities?
So I asked that. I didn't get really a clear answer there, and albeit we have to also keep in mind that Kamala Harris was basically just thrust into this position within the last few weeks. Certainly you saw in Jeffries' answer to my question just the other day that he is talking about some of those economic pieces that are top of mind for Kamala Harris as well, seeing that as really kind of the avenue that they would want to pursue. And we saw that with Kamala Harris's interview just yesterday, that she also put those sorts of economic policies front and center in terms of her day one sort of priorities.
All right, Kevin Fry in Washington, thank you so much for that report.